Thanks. Hi everybody and welcome to today's LinkedIn live broadcast. I'm joined with Kat Arney from First Create the Media. So welcome. Thanks, Kat, for joining us.
Lovely. So, I'll do something now. Hello. Yeah, no, thank you very much for having me. I mean, we chat so much and it's like, I get to chat with you and chat in front of you. So that's great.
Yeah, okay, great. Well, I'll just do an introduction, first of all, into social elements, and also then I'll introduce you so people know who you are. So my name's Lisa, and I'm the founder of Social Elements, which is a marketing consultancy, and we specialise in providing bespoke and strategic social media marketing services to the life science industry. So we basically help businesses to find their voice and be heard online. We're results driven and we focus on working with small businesses within the scientific sector to maximise their marketing budget and deliver an authentic and strategic campaign. We have three main values, and the first of those is that we are knowledgeable. We have career backgrounds in pharma with expert knowledge of the scientific sector, so we know what we're talking about from a scientific and a marketing perspective. We're also curiosity provoking. We love learning about science, and we're always looking for ways to do things that challenge and exceed expectations. And we're also strategic. We're thorough, observant, data-driven, and results-orientated. So some of our key services are that strategic development. We work with a business to develop a marketing strategy that's both realistic and achievable. We also offer ongoing services in the form of organic social media marketing, paid social advertising services and content marketing, as well as website development, a bit of design and SEO support as well. And then finally, we also offer training and consultancy. So that's where we pop into a business and help them, support them with their social media and any other forms of marketing that they might need some help with. So as I said, my name's Lisa and I'm the founder of Social Elements. I'm also a social media consultant. I have 8 years of expertise in social media marketing. And I also have a master's in medical microbiology from the University of Surrey, and I've spent 20 years of my career in research and drug development and also pharmaceutical diagnostic development. So moving on to Kat. So Kat is a multi-award winning science writer. She's also an author and a broadcaster, and she's also founder and chief creative officer of First Create the Media. First Create is a communications and marketing agency working with innovative life science pioneers to help them get their messages to the audiences that matter. You can connect with Kat using the QR code shown on the screen. So I'll hand over to Kat now, and she can talk to you more about what First Create do, and she'll be discussing how you can build buzz on a budget, which I'm really excited to hear because, you know, budgets are tight for everybody these days. So over to you, Kat.
Thank you so much. So in the words of my Canadian niece, hold on to your butts because I'm going to go quite fast through quite a lot of stuff. So you will be able to get this webinar on a replay and maybe go through it at half speed. I tend to talk quite fast when I'm excited. And the thing that excites me is science, talking about science. I'm a scientist by background and a big old professional nerd, but also thinking about how to get that science out into the world. So that's basically what we do. So I'll give you some of our kind of top tips. If you're at the stage where you know you need to do it, it's just you, maybe you're a small company, and thinking about some of the things that we think will give you the most bang for your buck and value there. So this is me in my favorite dinosaur dress. And the tagline of First Create the Media is we get your science and we bring it to life. We're all scientists by background. We really understand, we only work with life science companies and our passion is basically getting that science out to the world in a way that gets the attention that it deserves. So whether that is to attract investment, to attract partners, to attract new hires, to attract customers or clients, turning science into attention is really what drives us. So I probably don't need to tell you why doing that is important for early stage life science companies, but I'm going to skip through that fairly fast. But we are driven by this belief, which is that bad comms cost lives. And I'll just explain that, what I mean by that. Because basically, if you have a life science innovation that has the potential to make a significant difference to human health, animal health, the world that we live in, you kind of owe it to everyone to help make that a reality. And the way you do that is by getting that out into the audiences that matter, that can make that happen. So at the early stage, that is investors. How are you going to get people to invest in this to help you build it? Is it partners, collaborators, new hires that are going to help you build the team and turn this innovation from a really bright idea into a product or a service that is going to change the world and make a difference? And if you cannot get the attention, get the investment and the buy-in and the belief of those people that will help you do it, your innovation is not going to happen. And all the people who could benefit from it are going to miss out. So that's why this stuff is deep down really important. And this is against the background of particularly British and also European companies really, I'd say, not necessarily struggling, but maybe being a bit reticent to think about the importance of storytelling and communications, even from a very early stage. This is an article that came out in Sifted. Europe doesn't have a startup problem, it has a storytelling problem. You know, there's this idea that American startups and founders, they give it all that, and there's the razzle dazzle and all this kind of stuff. But it does matter, and the really smart founders understand that how you put yourself out into the world, effectively your brand, but you can just think of how do you present your company and your ideas and your science to the world, that has value. And doing it well adds value to your company and to your idea, to your product, your service, adds value to you as a company if you're looking for partnerships or even acquisition down the line. The effective communication and your brand is a valuable part of your company, and it's worth thinking about early on. It's worth working to get it right. It's worth, when the time is right, investing in it. And certainly there's early days investing time in it, and then increasingly investing some money in it in the right way that's going to add to the value of your company. Because basically at this early stage, what you need is that you're looking for investors, maybe you're looking for partners, collaborators, customers. You want to build a great team that's going to help you deliver on your innovation. And like I said, it will build value in your company. Feeling like a coherent, credible, professional-looking organization that is putting out a consistent message to the world about who you are, what you do, why it's important, why people should pay attention. That's a great thing to do, whatever stage you're at. So to do that, the important things that you need to achieve are differentiation, explaining why what you do and your company, why that is different from all the other people doing this kind of thing. And I'm afraid if you're sitting here going, well, no one else is doing what we're doing, like they might be doing something similar, or even if you really are genuinely the only person in the world that is doing what you're doing, you really need to make that clear and why you're not like the other people. You're not like the other girls. You need to explain why. It also establishes your credibility. If you're a small growing company, what have you got that's going to make people believe in you? What have you got that demonstrates your company credibility, your leadership credibility, and most importantly, your scientific credibility, that this innovation is something, it is real, and we think we know it works. And this is why we think we know it works. And then once you've got that sorted out, it's raising awareness with those key audiences that you need to make the next stage happen. So investors, partners, all that kind of thing, whoever's going to take you to the next level that you need to get to. So differentiation, credibility, awareness. Those are the things to have in mind when you're thinking about what do you need to do to get yourself out into the world. What you probably don't have is a lot of time, especially if you're in leadership. Probably don't have a lot of money. None of us have a lot of money right now. It is the biotech winter, and aren't we all feeling it? And you probably don't have the right kind of mix of comms skills. And what I mean is that we often find some companies that have someone in-house who's maybe they've got someone who has got some comms background, but bringing the real like strategic comms and the ability to deliver things, plus also the scientific understanding of your company, what you do, exactly how your innovation works. So that sort of mix of bringing the science and the communication together in a way that's like organized and coherent, that's usually lacking. A lot of startups that we work with, they have the science down. They're all about the science. But how do you actually explain that and get it out into the world in the right way? They don't necessarily have that. So whenever we start working with a company, we always run through 5 really key questions. I call them my 5 Qs of comms. And if you're thinking about starting to do more communications or PR or any of this, like, or getting out into the world stuff, you must run through these 5 questions, because if you don't, it's just not going to really hit the mark. So these are your 5 key questions, and they are: who needs to know about this? So is it who needs to know about us? Who needs to know about this news? Who needs to know about this innovation? Audience is always the first thing. If you're not clear on who needs to know about this, then anything that you do from there is going to fall apart, because audience is the very, very first part of communications. So thinking about who needs to know. And I'm very sorry, but everyone is not an audience, and everyone probably doesn't need to know about your biotech startup. I'm often asked, like, how do we get on the BBC? How do we get on the BBC front page? Like, honestly, you don't. If you think you've got something that will get on the front page, let's talk, because that will be absolutely incredible and I will help you do that. But at this stage, it's actually who needs to know about us. Who are the decision makers, the investors, the leaders, the new hires, whatever you need to do that next step. Who are they? And then the next and most important question is, why should they care about this? Why do they need to know? So for investors, like, is this a really good opportunity? Is this something that is going to be the next biggest thing? Is this a real like value generation opportunity or something innovative or whatever it is? Like, why does someone need to know about this? Why would someone want to come and work with you? Why would someone want to partner with you? And the answer is not just because like we're really good. The answer is because we deliver something that you need. So it starts with understanding who needs to know about you, and then what do they need? So, and then the answer hopefully is something that you do. Then we get on to the what you actually need to tell them. Often people kind of skip to this bit and go like, oh, well, we just need to talk about the what we do. We are a drug development platform. We are a microparticle, whatever thing. You know, we can talk about the what. And scientists are great at talking about what it is, what we know, what it does. So usually that bit needs a bit of refining and thinking about, like, what are the most important things that people need to know, with an eye on who needs to know about this and why do they need to know about this. So these things all kind of tie together. Then there's the what do you want them to do? So invest in you, work with you, partner with you, right? Communications should have an action in mind. You don't want someone to hear about you or read something or whatever and just go, oh, that's nice. Good for you. You want them to do something, sort of feel something. It's like, oh, you know, I should look out for that. I should get in touch with them. Oh, I should pass this on to someone who I know is looking for something like this. So what sort of action do you want to inspire? And then finally, we get to the how are you going to reach them? And often people just jump to this. It's like, oh, we're going to do a white paper. Oh, we're going to do LinkedIn. We're going to do a podcast. you pretty much never want to do a podcast. I say this as someone who has made podcasts for 20 years. If you're going to do a podcast, there are reasons to do one, and I'll be happy to talk separately about that. But everyone sort of jumps to that, oh, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to like put out a press release, we're going to do all of this. But without getting those first 4 questions really, really nailed down, then you're really going to struggle with the effective ways of like, what are the messages, and then how are you going to get them out into the world? And I'd maybe, those are really important things to consider. So once you've thought about your audience, it's thinking about the why, and you've got to be clear on what you are doing and why it's important. Why is now the time for this? Why is this the thing that answers this problem? Why are you the people that solve it? And then, so what? What does this actually mean, deliver? What is the value that your innovation generates? So this is all about the why do people need to know about you? So if you know who you're trying to communicate with, investors, you need money, right? What are investors looking for? Understanding that they are looking for things like an IP mode. They're looking for things like a solid team. Maybe they're looking for something that has got like a really clear ROI and path to market. Most of them are looking for that. Maybe they're looking for something that fits in their existing portfolio, right? So you need to understand that. So really being able to nail into the why. Why is this important? Why does this audience care about what I have? That is the first place to start with any communications. So if you haven't got these bits right, you are really going to struggle. One interesting thing that I often see is that we work with early stage companies, and it starts to become clear that there is disagreement within the organization about the answers to some of these questions. And that makes life really, really difficult, because if you don't understand what you're doing and can't explain what you're doing and why it's important and where you think the value is that you're generating with whatever it is that you're doing, it's very, very hard to then communicate that. So you've got to have that clear kind of value proposition. What is this? Why does someone need it? Why is it important? Then communicating it becomes a lot easier. And so if you're finding that you're really, really struggling to get that message articulated, it may be that you need to step back and go, well, actually, is our business strategy really clear? Does it all make sense? Is everything coherent in our company strategy and where we think we're going? And once that is clearer and more coherent, then it becomes a lot easier to communicate. So that's sort of a little red flag to look for. If you're finding it really, really hard to think about this stuff, it may be that there's actually a much deeper issue. We're working with a company that we sent them something that we'd written, and it just kicked off a massive fight across the C-suite about where this, where that, when, and we were like, you know what, guys, this is beyond our pay grade to fix. So come back when you've done that. So we've thought about this kind of stuff. If you want to get really fancy about it, you can think about, well, what do these people need to know? You can find these kinds of things on the internet to help you. You can do basically like a sort of a matrix when you're dealing with the personas. So we've got like a VC, let's call her Vicky, the call to action. What do you want her to do? You want her to invest in you. The things she cares about, like how big your market is, what your return on investment is, your team, the things you then want her to know. So this is the what do they need to know? Well, they need to know that about the problem that you're solving, that you've got a coherent vision and mission, that you're actually doing something valuable, you're doing something differentiated and different, that you're credible, you've got a clear roadmap, you know where you're going. And then the kind of proof points, the specific things that you would talk about that illustrate that. For a different audience, this partner, let's call him Peter, he wants to partner with you. So they're looking for, does this company actually fit with the kind of stuff that we do? So you still need to be able to talk about your problem, generating value, like where do you fit in the broader picture? Are you a good fit? Do you have really solid data, which is what they care about? They don't want to just get into bed with anyone. It's got to be, is this company legit? Can you do what we need you to do? They are more interested in you as a work partner. What do you like to work with? What is your company like? What's your culture like? Do you share our values? And what are you going to get if you work together? What's the value you both generate together? So some of that is still explaining the same stuff, articulating what you do, talking about your data, talking about your IP. If you've got validation from the external world, other advisors, collaborators, these kind of testimonials from people you've worked with. Maybe a different audience is a new hire trying to grow your team. So you can start thinking about, well, what do they care about? They care about, like, is this going to be a good place to build my career? Is this a company that I actually am going to want to get up and go to work with? Do I share their mission, their vision, their values? Company values are really important. Sort of sidebar, do not ignore those. If you have not thought about your company values at an early stage, please do that, because that will be the compass by which you'll make all sorts of decisions, and it's the flavor with which you put yourself out into the world. But a lot of this stuff, again, is the similar kind of stuff. You're doing great science. This is the problem you're solving. This is why it's valuable in the world. But then you want more of that personal stuff. What's it like to work with us? Who works with us? Are these normal people working for this company? Is this real? Am I going to start working with them and then find I'm out of a job in 6 months? Do they actually have a stable pipeline and a stable investment? So, you can think about this kind of matrix, you can think about these messages, and that then informs the what do you want to talk about. That's a lot of stuff. So I've simplified it into 4 basic areas. So if you only want to think about 4 broad things that are going to hit most of your audiences, it's these 4 things. So you want to be talking to the world about your team, who you are, what's important to you, how you work. That will cover off most of that kind of stuff. You want to be talking about the work, what it is, what you're doing, what you're finding, all of that kind of stuff. That covers off your, this is what we do, and this is like the value that we generate, and this is that kind of stuff. You probably want to talk about your insights. So this is the why you're expert, how you fit into the broader picture of the world, how the problem that you're solving fits into the bigger picture. And you also, of course, want to shout about your success. So, if you've landed a raise, if you've got a new partnership, if you've got some good results, new data, paper, all that kind of thing, milestones that you've hit. So these broad territories are what you want to have in mind that will cover off most of those audience bases. So anytime you're thinking about, right, what do we need to put out into the world? It'll be in one of these buckets. Will it be about the team? Is it about the work, our ideas, our innovation, what it is, what it does? Well, here's some data, all that kind of stuff. Will it be about our bigger picture, the value that we deliver? Or will it be about something cool that we've just done? So that's a good start of thinking about those kinds of like areas of stuff, the what do we need to talk about? And then we have the how are you going to get it out there, which I'm sure is the bit that everyone's been like, ooh, what's the secret? How do I go viral? All that kind of thing. There is none. I can't tell you. If I knew, I would not be here. I'd be on a yacht. So there's no quick fix to any of this. And also, there's absolutely no quick fix to any of this if you do not have it clear about who you're trying to reach, why they need to hear from you, and what you're trying to tell them. So you can't skip those first bits, I'm afraid, and just go, well, let's just put out a press release, because it's not going to land as well as it could do. So you have a few different ways of getting out stuff about you into the outside world as an early stage company. And I've really focused on the ones that are realistic and like some DIY advice. So you have some channels available to you, and we can break down channels into 3 different kinds of buckets. So the first are the channels that you own. You have complete control over what you put out through these channels. It's exactly going to have the right message, the right things that you want to say. It's going to be what you want to say. And that's your website, it's your social media, and in this day and age, it's probably LinkedIn. It's your own email list, and do not ignore that. I can't go into loads and loads of detail about email. I've chosen not to in this webinar, but that's a whole separate thing about what should early stage companies be using that email for. You can run your own events, and you can produce your own marketing or business development assets, whether that's like decks, one pages, white papers, blogs, all that kind of stuff, right? This is stuff that you make, you own, and you put out on the channels that you have access to. And that stuff is still really important, because that is the stuff that starts to build your digital footprint about who you are, what you do, how you fit into the world. And we are increasingly living in a world where we've gone far, far, far beyond like search engine optimization and just churning out SEO content on blogs and all that kind of thing to try and get noticed. Let's turn up as the first hit on Google, all that kind of thing. We've now gone to a world where everyone just like types into ChatGPT, who does this? What is this? Give me 10 companies that do this, right? So you have to think about getting out on your own terms to start with, and then ideally through other external channels, who you are, what you do, why it's important, that differentiation, credibility, right? You cannot ignore this, because this stuff is feeding into the big AI machine now. I had a call with a potential client yesterday, and I said, well, how did you hear about us? She's like, I just typed into ChatGPT, like, best people who deliver this kind of thing, and you were top. Wow, okay. And it was for sort of presentation skills training and that, media training for life science companies. Like, that's quite a small part of what we do, but apparently, like, I've never tried to rank on the first page of Google for that, but I turn up now in the first search of ChatGPT for that. It's like, okay, what we put out into the world, the digital footprint that we create, is really, really, really important. Lecture over about that. But yeah, you cannot ignore that. Putting out on your own terms who you are and what you do. Do not ignore it. The next one is the one that everyone thinks about when they're thinking about building buzz. And so that's, it's PR. Let's put out a press release. How do we get coverage in this and that? Not on the front page of the BBC, probably in the trade press, B2B kind of places. But it's also about looking for opportunities to place thought leadership. So this is articles about you, interviews, podcasts, all that kind of thing, speaking opportunities, conferences, webinars, panels, talks, all that kind of thing. I will give you some tips and advice for doing some of this. The speaking opportunities, you just got to work at it. Some of them you have to pay for. Some of them you can just contact a load of people and look for opportunities. But certainly there are places you can try and get some PR coverage and some thought leadership coverage. And it's called earned, because basically you're not paying for it and you're getting out there because someone else has said, oh, this is interesting and cool. Look at this. And that is really credible coverage. It builds on the stuff that you own. So it's saying someone else also knows what we do and trusts us and thinks this is good stuff too. So earned media, earned coverage, that is really important. It's harder to get, obviously, than the stuff that you just own and put out. But I'd say that's the next tier of what it's worth trying to do. And then finally, we have paid, and obviously appreciating that if you're an early stage company, you don't have a lot of money, so you need to be really selective. I'll talk a little bit about LinkedIn. I'm really aware that the expert on LinkedIn is on the call with me, so I'm not going to talk too much, but I'll talk about some of the things that we think about when we're working with our clients. But you can pay for ads and boosts on LinkedIn. You can pay for conference attendances, sponsorships, booths, things like that. You can pay to place thought leadership, that kind of advertorial. You can pay to put yourself in newsletters. I think that this, depending on what you're trying to achieve, this should come last on your list probably, unless you are really trying to launch a product or a service that you want people to use, and in which case you should set aside budget for this kind of stuff, and you should probably take some advice from people who know what they're talking about, marketing experts, about what's going to be the best kind of bang for your buck there. if you don't actually really have something to sell, you're not looking for specifically for like customers or clients, paying for a lot of attention is not really going to give you a good return on your investment. You're better off doing more on spending some time and energy and potentially money on the PR side of things, trying to earn that credibility would be my advice there. Rattling through, halfway through, let's go. Okay, here's some things I think about these different channels. Your owned channels, so these things you control, what you can put out there. Your website is one of two really important shop fronts to the world. As I said, it gets fed into search engines. This is where the information that you control and put out into the world about who you are and what you do, that's where it lives. There's one other important shop front, and I'll come to that in a second. But your website, as long as you're not trying to operate in stealth or trying to be super secret, and there are reasons to do that, but I'm assuming if you're on this call, you're ready to try and get a bit of buzz. Your website, you really do need to think about what you're putting out on it, because increasingly, as I said, it's getting sucked into AI and spewed out. So it's no longer something that you can just like ignore or let it get really out of date. But I will say less is more, right? A website is a shop front. It's not a Word document, right? You don't need to have loads and loads and loads of stuff on it. And especially if you are, you're growing, you're maybe pivoting, stuff today is not the same as things will be in 3 months' time. You don't need to have loads and loads and loads and loads of information on it. But what the information that is on it needs to be really clear, and that answers those questions about who are you, what do you do, and why do people need to know about you? Those really key things that explain who you are, what your innovation is, and the value that it delivers. So don't think that you have to spend tons and tons and tons of money on this. All it needs to be is clear, coherent, and by that I mean coherent across the other things that you're saying in the world, like anywhere else that your company turns up. And it does need to be current, right? It needs to be up to date, because that shows that it shows to like basically the search engines and the algorithms that there is stuff going on here. So don't think that you have to have tons and tons and tons of stuff. And it doesn't have to be really expensive, right? There are very, very affordable options. You can get the CEO's nephew to do it, but cheap is fine, but amateurish is not. This is your shop front to the world. So if you're going to spend a little bit of money, spend a little bit of money, and just make sure that it just doesn't look shit, basically, for want of a better way of putting it. And you do that by having less text, having clear, simple graphics, that kind of stuff, and just spending a little bit of time and attention on it. I will also say one of the things that makes my heart really sink is we get companies coming to us and saying, but we've just spent like £20,000 on our new website, but the problem is the copy's still really bad and it doesn't really explain what we do or the science. And it's like, oh, did you just go to like a random web agency? They're like, yeah. Well, that's the problem. So if you are going to invest money in building your website as a life science company, please do come talk to life science specialists. We've got wonderful partners that we work with who do the design, the brand, the website build in a very affordable way. And we will help with the messaging and the copy, because it just makes my heart absolutely sink when I see that someone spent loads of money on this all singing, all dancing website, and the words are just still don't explain what they do and hit that key messaging. And then 6 months down the line, they're having to rewrite it all. So don't make that mistake, because you'll throw good money after bad, as the saying goes. Yeah, there you go. If you're paying for it, find someone who's a life science specialist who knows about what you do and how to get it out. I won't go through this too much, but there's some basic things you need on your website. Don't feel your homepage has to have everything, but it should be clear what this is and why it's different. Don't just say developing groundbreaking novel drug delivery. I mean, that may be your tagline, but you need something else that explains why, because there's a lot of people out there developing groundbreaking drug delivery. So that kind of encapsulation of why you are different and differentiated, you do need to think a little bit about that. Any like real sort of markers of your credibility about us, talk, it just doesn't have to be tons. Who is this company? Who's working for it? What's your vision and mission? The technology, again, if you're early, does not have to be loads and loads and loads, but it should explain the key things about what this innovation is, why it's different, and the credibility of how we know it works. So a bit of data if you have it, the pipeline if you have one. Then there's the news bit, which is basically any section that you are regularly updating with stuff that's going on. So news, maybe you want to write blogs, maybe you've got a new asset, a white paper, deck, wherever it is. But this is a section that you need to be updating. I was talking with a founder and he's like, oh yeah, you know, we've had all this kind of stuff. It's just haven't got around to updating the website for like 6 months. And suddenly you put up a load of stuff and then you don't do anything for 6 months. And then you save up another 6 months of news and then you put it all out at once. Like little and often. It's like exercise, right? You just got to do a little bit. Keep that news flow going because it looks like you're a company, there's stuff going on, and it's also, alas, good for the algorithm. It tells Google and it tells the AI that this is a company that is doing stuff and here's regular news. You might want a page about working with you if you're trying to grow your team. Very importantly, you need some way of getting in touch with you. So that's the website. Doesn't need to be big, doesn't need to be fancy, but it needs to have the basic information. And ideally, at an early stage, less is more. Don't think you need tons and tons and tons. Then we get to LinkedIn, which is your other shop front. So LinkedIn, and this blows my mind, is, I'll talk about it in a second, but LinkedIn is not something that you can ignore. And it needs to be completely coherent in terms of your messaging with what you're saying on your website, because it's basically your other shop front, right? Your website, that's like your little shop on the high street. LinkedIn is your shop in the massive shopping mall, okay? So, and they should look the same. You should go, oh, that's that company's shop there. Oh, that's that company's shop there, right? Same branding, same messaging, should look and feel coherent. LinkedIn, it is a professional social networking platform and thought leadership platform, but basically it is that shop front. It can be a publishing platform. It can be a place to put out articles, put out newsletters. The first thing it was is a recruitment aid. It's still very useful for recruiting, and whether actively or passively, you can put ads out for jobs on there, or just showing that you're a company that is nice to work for and has humans here, and this is how we work and our values and all that kind of stuff. Right? It's a good place for that. LinkedIn is searched by the internet algorithms, right? And that's really important to know. This is a place where the information that you put into it feeds into that digital footprint of who this company is, what they do, why they're different, that kind of stuff, right? And you cannot forget it. And it's not just your profile, it's all the posts that you put up, the thought leadership articles, any of that, that all goes into the big mincing machine of the internet algorithm. But it is increasingly annoying. It's becoming increasingly cluttered, hard to use. I've just written a blog recently about that it is basically, as Cory Doctorow says, it's becoming enshittified and harder to use. So it's not compulsory, but it is a really valuable way of putting yourself out into the world. I'm not going to skip through a lot of stuff I'm going to skip through this to get some other stuff. But basically, like, LinkedIn cares about people doing stuff, pictures of stuff, original content, things that are regularly updated, conversations, engagement, comments, getting that in early. And LinkedIn cares about things staying on LinkedIn. If you're trying to use LinkedIn to drive traffic to your website or somewhere else, it's absolutely terrible at that. It's good for getting awareness of you and what you do on LinkedIn, but it's also really important for getting awareness of what you do in that big sort of AI overview domain world. It is the third most cited domain in Google's AI overviews, right? After Quora and Reddit, which are kind of interactive sites. So making sure that you are putting coherent, regular, consistent information out into the world about who you are and what you do on LinkedIn, high trust content, original content, data about what you do, talking about your company, making it really clear your differentiation, the problem that you solve, the areas that you fit into. That is really important if you want to get out and get known. And I think that the flip that we've seen from sort of SEO for websites and just trying to go viral on social media, stuff's now kind of blurring together into this AI, ChatGPT, searchy kind of world. So it's now all about just establishing a coherent, credible footprint about who you are and what you do. LinkedIn cares about people rather than company pages. So if all you can do is just get your company page up to snuff, that is fine. Here's our company page. We've got about 1,000 followers on it, post a couple of times a week. We get about 4,500 impressions over 90 days. This is my personal profile. Yes, I've got more followers. We've got 5 times more followers. I post a couple of times a week, but I get over 11 times the number of impressions on my content compared to the company page. So if you only have time to think about like one thing on LinkedIn, make it a personal profile, make it like the leadership profile, make sure that that is updated and growing and engaging and adding to that network, and just repost stuff across to your company page, because you will get a lot more bang for your buck from a personal page than a company page. It's not to say you should ignore your company page. That's all part of that footprint about who this company is and what they do. So don't not have one, and don't never update it. But if you have a choice, focus on the personal page first. As I said, like, I think LinkedIn is sliding downhill at a rate of knots. So do not ignore the other things. Do not ignore the opportunities to look for external PR, nurturing your mailing list, whole separate conversation, and like meeting people in real life. It's not LinkedIn is not a substitute for a comms and marketing strategy. On to earned media. How are we doing for time? Okay, right. This is like the dark art of PR. Okay, how do you get on? How do you get in Forbes? How do you get in Sifted? How do you get in Fierce? All that kind of stuff. The secret is you have a really, really cool story, ideally with a big number attached to it. And that is how you get covered. I'm sorry to say, right? You've got to have something really cool, really wow, and it's got to have a big number attached to it. It's important because you are getting external people to say, this is a company worth looking at. This is interesting science. You're surfacing information about you on an independent territory, independent audience. It also shows that stuff is happening. The thing about PR, and we get approached a lot by companies who are just like, can we put out a press release about this? Can we put out a press release about that? Like, most of this stuff is not press release worthy in terms of a big PR push. So you need to differentiate. Is this a big story or is this a small story? If it's a small story, we've appointed a new person. We're going to this conference. We're, updated, a small update to something, right? You can still write a press release about that or a news story about that, put it on your website. Absolutely. That is news flow. That is showing that you're doing stuff, moving forward. Stuff's happening. Put it on your LinkedIn. Brilliant. Moving forward. Stuff's happening. Okay. But if you want to really put a lot of effort into pushing a story and engaging the media and spending the money to put it on newswires and things like that, it needs to be a big story to make it worth it. Like results, funding, that kind of thing. Something that is actually a big story. And then also being clear on what that story actually is. So we were approached by a company to do some PR for them, and they approached us and said, oh, we've written this press release, and the press release is our company, little company, has signed a deal with big company, end of. Like, small company signs partnership with big company. I can spend a lot of time sending that out to media outlets, but that is because we do it all personally. We use the contacts that we have and put it on a newswire, but that is not going to get any attention because that story is boring as heck. Small company signs deal with big company, and if you don't have a very large number attached to it, I'm sorry, it's boring, right? Small company signs deal with big company for £50 million. Interesting. Small company signs, memorandum of understanding with big company. Not interesting. But then I looked at some of the other materials that they had, and this was a bit of information that never even surfaced in the original draft of the press release. And it was small company had used big company's technology to cut the timeline to optimize a particular asset from 15 days to 1 day. And you're like, you've used this to slash the time by 90% to do this task. And that time is money in drug discovery. That's the story. Small company partners with big company to slash time for this particular thing by 90%. And that's the story we went with. And that's a story that got some really great coverage that I was very, very happy with. So what is the story? Is this actually something that's worth really making a song and dance about? Or is this something that should just go on your website and LinkedIn? If you're going to put together a press release, you really need to structure it properly. You need to think about the headline. It's got to have the name of your company, the name of your innovation, the very top line about what it does. Do not fill it with guff like groundbreaking, next generation, rewriting the rules, enormous breakthrough. It looks like guff, sounds like guff. It's generic, right? If you're using terms like that, you need to try and think of things that really explain your differentiation, your credibility. Just putting out a press release that sounds like marketing guff, that is not a press release, that is marketing copy. Okay, so it needs to be structured with a headline that explains who you are, what you're doing, what this is, with the number in it, if you've got a big number. You need the first paragraph that is the who, where, when, what, why, how. Who is this? What did you do? What did you find? How did you do it? What does this mean? So what? And then you can unfold more detail about the innovation, a couple of quotes, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, avoid all the sort of the meaningless, incredible breakthrough, rewriting the rules on drug discovery, because journalists see that all the time and they just think it's bollocks. So there you go. I'm going to skip through this, but that's what I just said. Headline, bullet point summary, stand first, unfold your story, all of that kind of thing. With a press release, less is more. If you're going to put this up on a newswire, and I'll tell you in a sec about that, the more words you put onto a newswire, the more you have to pay. Business Wire, which is one that we use a lot, 400 words is the basic fee. Every part of 100 words on top of that is another 110 quid. So if you've just included loads and loads and loads of stuff and quotes from absolutely everyone, and your boilerplate is 200 words long, the boilerplate is the About Us section. If you've got all of that, it's kind of like, it's not really adding to the story, and it's just adding to your costs of putting it out there. If you want to put out, if you've written a really great killer press release, you've got a great story, you're like, right, we can't afford a PR agency, we're going to try and do this ourselves. You need to decide, are you going to issue this under embargo, which means you're going to send it out to contacts that you know, any media contacts, and say, the embargo date for this is the 1st of October. So we're giving you this information, you can get your story ready and everything like that. Maybe you want to have a chat with us or an interview. And on the 1st of October, that's when this is announced to the world. Journalists will respect embargoes. It's kind of an unwritten code of the world of journalists, right? They will keep an embargo. Or you can just send it out for immediate release, which is like, this is now news. We're going to put it up. Here we go. Put it on your website. You can submit to sector-specific newswires. Business Wire has a US bioscience corridor. That's pretty cost-effective. There are some more specialist biotech newswires. You will pay more for that. So specialist newswires, it's a few £1,000s. US Business Wire bioscience corridor, it's I think it's £440 for a 400-word press release. It's, if you want to just get something out there and get it adding to your digital footprint, that's a very cost-effective way to do it. And then also you can reach out to any media contacts you have. If you have investors who have media contacts, if you have partners who have media contacts, especially if it's a partnership press release, don't just slam the press release into an email and send it to them. It's rude, and also it doesn't really explain why you're contacting them. So if you're emailing a journalist or a media contact personally, you've got to kind of pitch it. You've got to say, hey, I thought you'd be interested in this. We've developed the ChatGPT for immunotherapy, that kind of stuff. So don't don't just sort of slap the press release in and assume that they should understand why it's important. But also, do not send attachments with an email to a journalist. Just paste everything into the body of an email, write a bit about, here's why it's important, here's why I thought it's interesting, here's what you really need to know. Press release pasted below, paste it into the body of your email, and also provide photos and images. Do not attach them, upload them into a drive like a Google Drive, make it sure it's accessible, and then put in the link to that. Because if you have a great story and a journalist wants to cover it for their outlet, the first thing they're going to come do is come back to you and say, have you got a photo? So like, here's some nice photos of the team. You can just like hoof them out there and put them in, right? You can also offer, oh, do you want to do an interview with our CEO? They can talk about this, or and also for outlets that carry thought leadership, it's like, would you be interested in a thought leadership feature from our CEO talking about the themes here? So it's an opportunity. If you're doing your own media outreach, it's an opportunity to try and like tease up a bit more. I will say PR is not one and done. We've just put out a press release, right? Everyone should know about us now. A press release is the first kind of opportunity to start engaging the media and getting them to know about you, especially if you're a very early stage company that's not had a lot of attention before. It can also take a long time. We sent out a press release for one company. They did get covered in the Daily Mail. It took 6 months for that article to come out, by which point our contract with them was absolutely long gone. And, sorry, but I kept pushing it and we got the story out. I was very happy with that. But PR is not one and done. You get a big buzz and then it's an opportunity to build on that. Journalists have heard of you. It's a real opportunity to start then thinking about how do you capitalize on that. Thought leadership is a whole other area as well. So you can pitch thought leadership to outlets that take it. You can do your research and think, how do we get covered in like drug target review? Well, you write a really interesting idea and you contact them. And then you have to back it up with a really good article. So that's usually about 800 to 1200 words. It needs to be usually referenced, often in a particular way. It needs to be written with SEO in mind and readability in mind, not too full of jargon, all that kind of stuff. You can also publish thought leadership on LinkedIn. You can publish thought leadership on your website. It's all adding to that footprint of this is who we are, this is what we do, this is what we think, this is how we fit into this world. If you are pitching to external outlets, you cannot be, if they're going to place it for free, you cannot be spammy and promotional. You cannot shove in loads and loads and loads of mentions for your company or your technology or your product. You've got to be really careful to actually make it a piece of genuine, interesting thought leadership. Otherwise, people aren't going to read it. So good areas to think about are, what's actually the problem that your innovation addresses? What's changing in the field that makes now the right time for this? What are people getting wrong in this field? What have you heard people talking about? What are the issues and the challenges? So thought leadership's a whole separate area, but it is a good way to get your thinking out. And even if you can't place it in an external outlet, looking for opportunities to do your own thought leadership on your own channels. We just started working with a startup that is now running their own Substack. So Substack's publishing platform, it sort of combines like the networking effect of LinkedIn with the publishing effect of a blog, with like the power of an email newsletter. So it's a really interesting one. But if you're going to publish stuff like that, you've got to make it interesting. You've got to make it readable. You've got to make it like something that people actually want to read. Paid, I'm not really going to talk a lot about this because ain't no one got a budget. So here we are. What's worth it? Conferences. It's worth going to conferences. If you have the budget, it may be worth sponsoring a conference that's really, really, really relevant in your niche because you'll get more attention. If you're going to pay for LinkedIn, it's worth paying for personal premium LinkedIn. It means you can slide into people's DMs and you get a bit more visibility. Personally, and I don't know if Lisa has a separate view on this, I don't think it's worth paying for company premium. If you have posts that are already getting really good engagement, it's worth, if that suits the timing of where you're at and what you're trying to do, it's maybe worth paying for a LinkedIn boost for that to a particularly targeted audience. Do be really careful. We had a client that everything got a bit confused while they were paying for a boost, and they didn't make it very targeted. And like, yeah, everyone on LinkedIn found out about them, but it cost them so much money. So it's one of these advertising platforms where you need to really define your budget and your target audience. It doesn't have to be massive, because at this stage, you're really actually probably going for a very targeted audience. Ooh, a couple more things. Make sure that you have professional photography. Do it regularly. It is the one thing that makes you look like a professional company, is having proper professional photos of you. If you're trying to get media attention, that's what people will ask for. If you're putting people on LinkedIn, have a proper professional headshot. It makes such a difference. And then you're probably going to have to do it every 6 months to a year. Not the place to talk about tools like ChatGPT. They can help you, but you will sacrifice originality, authenticity, and accuracy if you rely on them too much. A couple of other tools there. You're going to have to come and watch this again to find out what I'm talking about. There might come a point where you feel that you need more help. At the early stage, if you're really struggling to nail down that story, that messaging, like, what do we need to do to reach these audiences? You can get some help there. This is all stuff, obviously, that we can do and we can help you with. But if you're really struggling to nail that story and messaging, if you want to make a big PR splash, if you've got a big number, big partnership, that kind of thing, put it in your budget, approach people in advance. I can't do your press release next week. I'm definitely put out press release for you next month. So plan it when it starts to look like things are solidifying and you think this is big. Get that help nailed down, locked in. When you do reach that stage, maybe you've got like a big seed round, big Series A, and you're like, right, we really need to look like we have our shit together to the world. If you are not actually getting the comm stuff done, if you're the CEO and it's always coming to you and it's just never, ever, ever happening, you may need to get some help with that. And remembering, of course, that your time is also money. If you're the leadership and you're writing LinkedIn posts and you're not getting the other stuff done you need to do, that's the time. It's like getting a cleaner, right? As soon as you earn more than a cleaner, you should get a cleaner. That's been my mantra. So yeah, and get help in advance. If you need that kind of stuff, that's the kind of stuff we do. Strategy, story, brand, creative content of all kinds, science-led content, PR, comms, social media, although I will say Lisa is the absolute expert in the social media side of things. And we're just really great to work with, really nice to work with, and really know stuff. So that is it. You can sign up for our newsletter. Oh, we've got 3 minutes for questions.
Thank you, Kat. That's brilliant. Really good. We have had a couple of questions. This is one of them. If we run out of time, I suggest you pop into LinkedIn and answer the questions there. But you can probably answer this one at least, I reckon.
Yeah, in-person events are great because you are just getting one step closer to people. So I think we're actually going to see a return to more in-person. Because as platforms like LinkedIn just become really cluttered, I think we're going to see like niche communities and in-person events becoming more and more and more important. And how best to upsell without upselling. Basically, sales is not about the sell. It's about understanding people's problems and speaking to solving their problems. So if I just listen and people will tell you where it hurts. And then it's like, oh, okay, yeah. So what about this? What about this? Oh, we can help with that.
Yeah, it should be a natural progression, shouldn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. One of my team was like, oh, I hate selling. It's icky. It's like, it's not. You're listening and then you're helping.
Yeah, I just try and view it as you're trying to help them with a problem that they have. You're not trying to sell a used car to them or anything.
Exactly. And they're not in the market for used cars. So
yeah. Okay, well, we've got about minutes left, so I'm going to wrap up the session and say thanks, Kat, for a really entertaining and interesting discussion.
Too much, always too much.
No, it was perfect. I will make sure, the recording will be available after the session automatically by LinkedIn Magic, but we'll also share social posts as well. And then I just wanted to say that next month we're taking a break, and then the next session after that will be in November, and we'll be talking about leveraging thought leadership on LinkedIn within your organisation.
Ooh, there you go.
Yeah, so that kind of feeds into what Kat has mentioned already. So yeah, hope to see you all there. And thanks once again, Kat. We are down to 5 seconds left. So I'll say thanks and goodbye. Thank you.